Okay, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the session, and I'm really excited to dive into this today. So, if y'all can hear me, let us know where you're tuning in from, what's going on. Again, super excited to really dive into this and go into it, y'all. So, we got a fun time for y'all today. So, again, let us know where you're tuning in from, what's going on, and what's happening. And we're going to talk about some objections. And so, we got Zach and Jack. I don't know if that was on purpose that y'all that y'all have the rhyme scheme here. But as we go into this, really want to get an understanding from everybody. Obviously today we're talking about objection handling. When it comes to objection handling, what would you rate your skill on a 1 to 5? Like, what would you say on a 1 to 5 ratio? You would say your objection handling skills are. So 1 being like I'm just getting started. I'm trying to learn, or 5 is like maybe you're elite. I don't know. Could be elite. We will see. But really want to dive in and see where everyone's at. And the goal today is to help you get 0.5 better with the people that we have. So I'm super excited for that. So with that being said, Zach, if you could introduce yourselves as we get into this.
We're here. We're live on the stage.
We made it.
There was a big button. I was ready to press it. I was waiting. It's good to see you, Morgan. How are you?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
So beautiful. I'm ready to help handle objections. That's what we're here for.
We'll give a little introduction for the audience, and then we'll dive into it.
My name is Jack David Frimston. I am from Manchester in sunny England, and I am a co-director of a company called We Have a Meeting. We book meetings. We help people get better at sales. It does what it says on the tin.
Awesome.
I'm Zac Thompson. I'm the same as Jack, but he's the comic and I'm the classic.
It's funny going into this promo. I was like, I didn't know we had Jon Snow coming on live to handle objections, and I was like, all right, here we go. I didn't know that he was now in sales. So here we are.
Yeah, his watch has ended.
Sales are coming. Here we go. So let's talk about objection handling, and we have different frameworks for you all today as we're going to dive into it. But I want to just hear from both of your perspectives on objection handling. When you face an objection, how did you learn to get more, let's say, confident in handling the objections and more calm so you don't feel overwhelmed by the objection that's happening?
It's a good question. Objections are a funny one. I think in my early sales career, I was very like Grant Cardone. There's a way of handling every objection. There'll be some sort of magic silver bullet I can use. My stance on it has changed in my later career to the best cure is prevention. So if I can find a way to head off any potential objection first, it tends to be that they don't come up in the first place. So what I mean by that is a lot of our calls are dealing with prospects who might at the end of it be vulnerable to change. They might bring up price at the end. So all those things that are going to come up in and maybe prevent a sale from moving forward. Our whole framework is how do we bring them up first and get the prospect to sell themselves on it, which we can talk about. But around how to stay cool and calm when they come up in the first place, I think what would really happen if you had 1,000 conversations, no objection would surprise you. You probably only get in a select few or a select few types of objections. So you don't really ever get any that are terrifying. People might say, can I deal with Zach instead of Jack? But that's not an objection. That's just common sense.
A way of life.
Jack, how do you feel about it?
I think mindset is such a big one, and like you say, like when I was younger, objections, you run into it. How can I combat it? What do I say? Feel, felt, found, all that fun stuff. But I think where a lot of people, especially in the cold calling world, if we're talking about that, objections on discovery calls are probably a little bit different, but like objections in the cold calling world, like I think a lot of the time people mistake objections for statements or knee-jerk reactions. So if you really kind of work out what somebody's saying, why they're saying it, where it's coming from, is it a place of it's a genuine objection and they've got fear because of what you might be saying, or is it just the chimp part of their brain kicking in and it's actually a knee-jerk reaction trying to keep them safe? So I think I always imagine that like human beings and like prospects, like they're like spiders. They're probably more scared of us than we are of them. So does that make sense? Something like that.
Hey, look, if y'all found value from that one, I think the objections are very interesting. And actually, to go back to what Zach said, is that's why I encourage people when you get into your SDR role, or if you just start out in sales, make a lot of cold calls at volume, because as you have more conversations, you get more comfortable with all the objections that are thrown at you. Like, I don't know about y'all, I've just had some crazy objections that I've heard from other reps, myself, where I'm like, I didn't even know that objection existed. I didn't even know someone even could have that objection, right? But I think once you face so much of that adversity, you come more, let's say, confident and calm in the approach.
Totally agree. It's, you there is always going to be something to surprise you, because human beings are kind of, they bring surprises, but there's not much, like Zach was saying, there's not that much that's original or unique. So think of it as like going to war. What can we prepare for? What can I actually do to prevent finding myself in a vulnerable position when it comes to those objections?
Absolutely. So let's go into this piece, right? So what are we going to learn today? Because people are probably asking. So the main core thing is that we're going to learn frameworks, and we're going to have some recordings on the bot. So we're going to see how people performed against the bot here. But within that, let's talk about the go-to objection handling framework. So we talked about being calm and confident. Let's talk about some frameworks here. So Jack, look, when you think about handling an objection, there obviously are a lot of different objections. And by the way, for the audience, if you have objections that you're like, hey, I really don't know how to handle it, throw it in the Q&A or the chat, and we're willing to answer those here live on this panel. But Jack, what is your framework when you're handling objections?
Yeah, I'd be really keen to see like what people are saying are objections, and I think more specifically at what point they're coming up. Like, do they typically come up at the beginning? Do they come up at the end? Me and Zach can probably break this down between us, because there's a couple of stages, but the first stage is always going to be accepting it. Like if somebody says, I've already got something in place that does this. Yeah, absolutely. I thought that you might. Or just accepting it. The last thing you want to do is just dive straight in with a question where it's like, well, what do they do? Or what are they like? You'd never want to be fighty with it. You want to welcome it with open arms at all points and say, yeah, absolutely makes sense, to just show that you've listened. You'd be so surprised. Like every prospect is probably thinking when they're discussing with a salesperson, you're just like the rest of them. You're pushy, you're needy, you're in it for yourself. So how can you show that you're genuinely listening and you're genuinely trying to help? So acceptance is always the first step.
Do you want me to jump in here, Jack?
If you'd like to, it'd be great to have you.
Pause there. Okay, so welcoming is first, or empathy. So welcoming or empathy. So empathy might sound like someone would say, I'm sick of getting these calls. I'm not taking cold calls anymore. You don't want to jump straight into then trying to, well, can I just take 30 seconds first? You want to lower the voice. Sounds like you get a lot of these. That sounds really frustrating. Like empathy can be a really good tactic in those spots as well. Now, when you get into it, objections come under different guises. So if you were to think of yourself not as a salesperson, but as a therapist, an objection would come under many different guises. So I'll give you an example. If someone said, yeah, we've got those problems, but I don't see how software can solve that. That's a human problem. Okay, that would appear as an objection, but that is what a therapist would call a limiting belief. So that is not necessarily true, but that's something that exists in your prospect's mind and is limiting them from solving that problem. So not necessarily an objection, it's a limiting belief. So because of that, we would then move into a different style of handling it. I'm not interested, we've already got something in place. That could be more of a standard objection. And for something like that, we might completely welcome it, but then move into a technique that we like to call a one last question. So it's we've welcomed the objection, we're going towards the door, and we're saying, actually, just before I leave, do you mind if I ask you one last thing? I would say 9.5 times out of 10 people will let you have that one last question. Now it's then for you to really think on your feet and be able to challenge that. So if it was a case of, we've already got something in place that takes care of all that.
Yep.
Your one last question might be, what would have to happen to make you look at something else? What would you rate what you're doing at the minute out of 10? The problem that you were trying to solve when you brought X in, I'm guessing you've completely resolved that and it doesn't bother you anymore. You know, these are the things that you can bring up as that one last question. But in terms of a framework, welcome. If it is genuinely an objection, one last question, but always get permission before you jump in to do that.
And I want to talk a little bit about that one last question. You know, how important is the tone, inflection there when you're asking that question as well?
Jack?
Yeah, tone is responsible for so much, as we know when it comes to communicating. The way you say things is probably more important than what you say. I was listening to something earlier, and the one last question, it came across as like fighty and aggressive, which then leads the prospect to getting their back up. So we've got to handle things with empathy. So it's like, okay, I guess it's like you're just like, as you're leaving, you're just saying, listen, just before I go, can you help me out? Can I have a few more seconds? And we love permission. One last question before I let you go. If you had to, and you're thinking like we talk about the 4 different characters that you'll play when it comes to sales. So you've got the idiot, the therapist, the lawyer, and one of them is the actor. Okay, so at different points, you're going to have to be challenging. You're going to play an idiot. You're going to be therapeutic with your questioning style, but also the actor. So thinking on your feet. Okay, I guess one last question before I let you go. I'm thinking on my feet, and then maybe I'll take it down an idiot route. When you said you've got X in place, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's where kind of people that can master it, black belt style, they can play the idiot and they're not necessarily an idiot.
I think, we all right. So as if people are coming in, so we have this question, or actually someone said this right here. They said, true, I do find myself, and we share this right here, I find myself dealing a lot of times with a risk objection. They don't see the value in the product and believe that won't work for them. And I think that's really important to call out, because someone may be like, all right, oh, actually, this is a good thing. I want to hear from you all, because this kind of leads into probably maybe people have this question too. So this whole thing saying, hey, I don't see value in this product, or they think that they're already set. So when you're talking to someone and they say, hey, we're already using a in-house tool for that, or an in-house agency, or we're set. What are ways that you can handle that objection to get them to see like, hey, no, like we're actually like doing certain things here as well?
Can we say that you want to go? I spoke about.
Okay, all right, I can take it. If they've already got something in house, so yeah, I thought you would have before I even called, but thought I'd be brave and give you a call. You mind if I ask you one last question before I let you go? And they'd say yes, and I would say, when you brought in that agency, what was the problem you were trying to solve? Oh, we were trying to get more leads, more meetings in the diary. Okay. And between where you thought you'd be to where you are now, where would you put yourself? And then they start to talk. All I'm looking to do with this one last question technique is to get that little gap in the door where the conversation starts again, and we start thinking logically. I actually think the Q&A one around risk is slightly different. So if it's dealing with a risk objection, so there's risk in looking at something, or what was the wording of that, Morgan?
That was risk objection.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, this one here. I do find myself dealing with times with risk. I can't see the next part. Risk objection.
Yeah. So essentially, this is like they don't see value in the product. So basically, it's just like, hey, I'm not interested, or like we're already set. That's what's going on here.
Okay. So they don't see the value in the product and believe it won't work for them. So this might be more upstream, and that tends to be the case with objection. So the problem tends to define the value, and the problem will also define things like the budget. So what they're really saying is, I don't have a problem or motivation to fix a problem. So if I lead with, here's my product, 9 times out of 10 people are going to say, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably what I'm hearing there.
Here's another piece as well. I actually want to bring this up because this is actually interesting. If the main issue is pricing, how do you move around this? And if y'all want to, again, add your Q&A here, and then we'll listen to some live calls with the bots here. And I was going to ask Anna if that helped answer your question. Looks like it did. But if the main issue is pricing, how do you move around this? So I'm essentially saying here, if someone is on the cold call and they're like, I'm interested, but I need to know price, most reps are taught to not share price on a cold call. And now you're having this back and forth. So how do you handle this?
It's such a weird. Why do I know why, but I guess let me throw it to you, Morgan. Why do you think reps are taught not to talk about price on a cold call?
Yeah, from most of the time when sales leaders bring this up is because the rep will give the price and they'll try to even discount the price so they can get the meeting set. And now the AE is at a disadvantage immediately because now this SDR set them up for obviously not success. So I feel like sales leaders are like, let's not even deal with that. Let's not even mention the price. Let's let the AE do the discovery first before the price happens. Like in most scenarios, that's why that's happening.
Yeah, and I think like we're always, and this is why we hate BANT, but it's always like, what is, can we think about the prospects? Can we put them first? Sales is serving and all these different things. So how can we help them? So pricing is such a funny issue because some people aren't going to be able to afford it, and that's fine. Like
Yep.
targeting and stuff like that. But like it's really about like value, and the problem will define the pricing and stuff like that. So like if the problem's big enough, they'll define that will define the budget and things like that. So should you bring up price? It depends. A lot of companies will have complex pricing systems, and the last thing you want is an SDR trying to explain something ridiculously complex that doesn't make sense. Well, how many users have you got? How many UIs have you got? How many seats have you got? All of that fun and games. If we talk about price, it's a case of, okay, yeah, I can give you that. Are you sat down, Morgan? And if I give you the price, will you be really honest? And I'll big it up and say, like, if it's far too ridiculously expensive, will you be honest with me and let me know? Okay, you sat down, yeah, cool, and you build up a picture and then you deliver it. And I think it's like one of those, but it's always, can I get back to the problem before I deal with that? There are some people that are going to be adamant, I want to know the price. Chances are they're probably not going to go anywhere, or they're going to make a snap decision.
Yeah, I think most people's methodology as well around price, and Morgan, you alluded to it before, you see this a lot in SaaS, is can I ram my product down your throat and give you enough discount that makes you want to drink it? That tends to be how that methodology works. But yeah, pricing, like all objections you can head off at the start. So if I was on a discovery call with someone, before we even jumped into it, I'd say, look, I'm just going to give you all the bad news up front. If there's anything you don't like, you've saved half an hour, 45 minutes in your diary. Does that sound fair? They go, yeah, sure. So I'll give them the commitment, how much it costs, and I'll say any red flags in there, any reason you wouldn't want to have this call. I would say it's very rare that someone goes, too much money. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to do this. Yeah, they normally go, okay, cool. I've got an idea of the price. Then we have a very low pressure conversation because I've dealt with all the objections at the start of the call, and the rest of the call can just move nice and smooth.
Yeah, I want to go back to even what Jack said, is that calling it out, and I like to use the humble disclaimers and say, hey, like this might be an odd thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to tell you the price, but I'm also going to ask you as well if it's outrageous, right? Because to your point, if it is outrageous, it's out of scope, you probably don't even want to hand that off to the AE anyways, right? You're actually helping everyone save that time. And even Zach, to your point as well, I can get a good understanding of the conversation I'm about to go in instead of being like, I'm going to discount 80% so I can book the meeting to get comped, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not going to help anyone at the end of the day. So I believe that's the case. So Harry, let us know if that helps answer your question. And if not, we can dive back into it. But let's go to this question too. So there's a lot to this question because it depends on what you're doing and who you're calling. But the question is, how would I navigate across not being able to build rapport on our opening call? So essentially, not being able to like get the prospect comfortable in the first 10 seconds of the cold call. That's what's going on
here. That's an interesting one. Like I personally, if I'm on a sales call and someone tries to build rapport with me, or maybe what is deemed as rapport, I find it like creepy. I'm not interested at all in someone asking me like where I live, where I went to school. I can't stand it. But like, so that's what you got to be careful of, like trying to build rapport with people as an outcome. Rapport really comes from the questions you ask and the listening you do, as cheesy as that sounds. But I used the therapist analogy before. I bet you don't sit down with a therapist and they say like, okay, what's your dog called? Where did you go to? They're sat there as just a vessel for the conversation you want to have. So really, it's a case of people buy from people like them. So you just want to be sat back and just mirroring what you're seeing back from someone there. You don't want to be trying to, oh, you brought up fishing. Let's talk about fishing for the next hour. You brought up your favorite football team. Oh my gosh, they're my favorite football team as well. What you're doing there is making friends. You're not selling. So I wouldn't worry too much about rapport. Rapport comes from being a professional.
I'd agree. What rapport is and what is deemed as rapport are two totally different things. And in the sales industry, rapport is one of these words that gets thrown around. It's like making somebody feel comfortable. I built rapport, just like a safe space, and you can do that with your upfront contract or a pattern interrupt or whatever. It doesn't have to be the worst thing. If I get a cold call on a Monday and someone says, "How was your weekend?" I don't even want to talk about my weekend with Zach, and he's supposed to be my best friend. Do you know what I mean? Like, let alone a stranger.
Is that a personal thing? No, why you don't want to talk about your weekend? What's going on?
Because I wind him up.
Yeah. With a stranger though, if someone out of the blue was like, "What have you been? Did you see the family on the weekend, Morgan?" You're like, "Shut up, man. Who are you? Who's this schmuck? Tell me what you want and how I can help you."
It's actually a really good call out here on rapport. I believe the way that we should all think about it is, how can I make the prospect just feel comfortable, right? Because if you're calling someone, it's an uncomfortable scenario. And it really is, it's out of the blue. They're not ready for it. So it's all about, how do I make someone feel comfortable? Yeah, those questions on a cold call are not going to fly. If you lead with insights, you ask a good question, that's how you build the rapport that you're looking for. And so this is more of a thought process, a mindset, rather than here's exactly what you need to say. I would definitely take time to study your customers and get an understanding of how you're looking to reach out to them and talk to them. And that's ultimately how you're going to be able to see that success. So that's what I would say there for you, Moss, and hopefully that's helpful. And if anyone has any further questions, feel free to put them in the chat in the Q&A. We're gonna get to the bots here in a minute, but I have a question for the panelists because I want to like dive into this because I think it's very important. When it comes to objection handling, people probably are wondering, okay, great. Like, obviously I can call people and I can handle the objections live and I can get better. But, obviously we're about to dive into these bots too. But before AI, right, and everything of nature, or even now, how do you all practice your objection handling skills?
You pick up the phone and you speak to real life people.
Besides that though, like what if someone's like, I need to prep before that, is what I'm saying. Or you're saying that it's not even possible. Like that's.
I'm not saying day one on the job you should get in. Like, it is a case of like, I think it's like you learn by doing. Okay, or you like there's different ways to learn, isn't there? There's like reading something or watching something, writing it down is also going to help you. Teaching it to somebody else, that's probably going to help you as well. So like newer reps, if you're a new rep and then you're 3 months into the role and you help the new rep, you're probably going to have a higher success because you're teaching it. But also like you learn by doing. There's so much that you can't like until you're actually in it real life. Like when we do role play with our reps, like sometimes in the past, like we've not set them up for failure, but we'll be like a lovely prospect willing to have a conversation, and then you get on the phone and people like shutting it down straight away. So sometimes you've got to get into those real life examples and be like, right, okay, now let me dissect that. They said that and I said this, and then that ended the conversation. So when someone says that, what can I say? Okay, let's role play that in tandem. I think AI is great for certain like situations, and it's going to change the world. But I also think you learn by doing, don't you? And I don't think it's a bad thing to get on the battlefield and get a couple of bruises and a couple of grazes.
No one wants bruises, Jack, though. They're gonna be like, it's not for me. They don't want that. I agree though with Zach. You're about to chime in.
I think if people are lucky enough to have a team, that they can do things with. I'm a big advocate of task-based games, something I stole from martial arts, but basically like a good one for objections. Everyone writes an objection down and someone's name in the team. The person who can ask a salesperson an objection that they can't deal with wins. So I'd write one down now and I'd say, right, Morgan, I'll give you the objection. Here's the situation. Bang, go. You've got to deal with it. And if you can't, I win. But if you can, you win. And at the end of it, there's a bit of a gamification. There's a point system in the background. So 100%. Being able to have those like task-based games where you just limit the skill set down to one particular thing, objection handling, reverse questioning, mirroring, labeling, whatever it may be, could really help, especially if you can isolate this is an objection or this is a skill set that I struggle with, and you're lucky enough to have a team to go back and forth with.
Love that. That's great. So let's dive into these 2 questions that came in. So Moss is back again. Shout out to Moss here. This is actually a good question. This might cause some controversy. I don't know. But are permission-based openers the best to start a call with?
If Justin Michael's in the audience, then no. I have had a lot of success with them. There's all sorts of different answers to this, right? There's no silver bullets. There's no opener that's going to be 100% the best every single time.
No.
Hi, how are you? Will work on someone. Yeah. For us, statistically, permission-based openers have done the best. It's worth noting we're typically ringing in at C-suite level, and that is where it works the best. So letting someone know up front that's very busy, this is a sales call, you've got an option to hang up or let me have 30 seconds.
Yeah.
If someone's very busy and lots of people are trying to sell to them all day, getting that immediate respect, permission and room to say no will get someone bought into having a conversation with you. If it's someone that's a bit more touchy-feely, softer, interpersonal skills, maybe more HR marketing type role, we found that different openers work better in that space. So it's very much horses for courses. Best is probably the word there that jumps out to me, as I wouldn't feel comfortable telling you anything's the best, that they could all work. Jack?
I agree. For once in my life, I
Come
agree.
on, there's no way you agree with me.
I don't
know.
like
your trust you, but I agree with you.
You didn't like agreeing to that at all.
It hurt him, didn't it? I saw that.
His face said it all.
Yeah,
but if you're going to be good at sales, you're going to be good at sales. Like I used to go blue in the face arguing with people about why they shouldn't ask, hi, how are you, blah, blah, blah. But I do know that if you rock it, like Mr. Cognism himself, like you will, like if you rock it and you want to, and you will make it work. So like I said, the way you say things is probably more important than what you're actually saying. But we found it works. It works for us. It's great. And switch it up. Like people, it drives me crazy. People think the only permission-based opener is it's a sales call. You can hang up and let me have 30 seconds. That's like one version of a PBO. Like there's so many. So like think about that and find something that suits you. Be happy, guys. Make your life happy.
Yeah, I think. But the thing is, when it comes to what's the best way to start a call, to Jack's point, is you have to find out what's best for you. I've also come to this conclusion as well. When David will be like, hey, how are you? I'm not a fan of it, but it works for him. So I'm like, great, like do your thing. So I think it ultimately just comes down to what are you personally going to feel the best doing? Mm-hmm. For me, it's my own personal permission-based opener. I really wouldn't steer away from it at this point, but I'm the most comfortable doing it at this point, right? And you have to find out for yourself. So let's get to this last one and we'll get to the piece here. So I'm assuming this question here from Nico is you never had contact before, say, please write an email and wait till I answer to give you a call. So what I'm reading this as, someone, you call them and they say, I don't do cold calls, send me an email. What do you do?
Yeah, good, really good question. So email objections are one of my favorites. There's 2 ways of dealing with an email objection.
Oh, so you really got fired up about this one.
I got fired up. This is one of my favorites. This is the one that people, when they do this, see the most actionable. Oh, I started doing that and I'm seeing that something good happens from it. So I get excited about this one.
Get into it.
So same rules apply. Welcome it. Yeah, of course I can. Even if I've got your email written down, I always ask for it because it gets that space. It really shows cognitively that I've accepted what you've said. So let me just grab your email. So there's that space then. Oh, Zac, Z-A-C, at, we haven't, there's that space. Okay. If it's at the start of the call, what I would say is, I've not even got my pitch out yet. I'd say, can I be really honest before I send this over? Yeah, go on. 9 times out of 10, when people say, send me an email, what do you think they're really trying to tell me? Okay. And then they'll say, well, they're probably trying to tell you they're not interested, and they'll give me the answer I'm looking for. And I say, okay, well, is it worth me summing up really quickly why I'm calling? If it's a total waste of your time, I won't even bother sending you the email. I'll never bother you again. Yeah. So that's the first part of the call. The other part of the call, where it might come up later on down the line, and we're not really in it enough yet to book a meeting. There's not a problem yet. I use a technique that we call looping, which is basically they ask for an email, same rules, welcome, get the email down, and I loop back to the starting point. So I say, just so I know what to focus on, out of problem A, B, and C, what am I focusing this email on? And they'll pick one. There's an illusion of choice there. Okay, and again, that tends to look different to everyone. Could you maybe give me an example of what that looks like? Before they know it, they're telling me about the problem, they're giving me examples of it, how long it's been affected, and we've just totally sidetracked the email objection in the first place. Email objections, if you look back upstream, are usually a result of you did something wrong. So we find the most common place that you will get an email objection is when you've pitched. So when you've said what you do. We're Cognism, we're an award-winning data provider that's used in the B2B. You know what, send me an email. That's usually where you're going to get that. We have a meeting with, I'm cool. Just shoot me an email.
Yep.
When it stops being about them, that's when you're going to get that. So those are my two where I use it the most. I got fired up. You guys saw it.
Did. Yeah. I mean, no award-winning, no leading provider. Let's stay away from the language.
Just stay away from talking about yourself. Your prospect's favorite subject's always the same. It's always themselves.
100%. Jack, anything you want to add to this one?
I don't agree with him.
What? Yes, no. a lot of agreement from you today. This is rare.
No, I do agree. Yeah, people don't care about you, your case study, your website. Like, make it about them, their world. Get to the bit. How do I get them? And sometimes it's like that. It's that chimp brain. You've just got to break past that chimp phase where their defense is up, and then once you're in, bit of humor, being honest, allowing them room to say no. Next thing you know, we've done it before. And like when we do our live cold calling show, people are like, no, I don't want to take a call. I'm driving. Next thing you know, you're 30 minutes deep into a conversation and they're telling you about what they're having for their Sunday dinner. It's like, what is going on? So yeah, just stick with it.
Awesome. All right, y'all. So I see some other questions coming in. We're going to come back to that. We're going to get to Hyperbound and their bots. So we had Jack and Zac make calls here. We're going to play them live, and you all can provide feedback to this. So far that everybody's hanging out with us. Before we go into the bots, let us know in the chat if this has been helpful and impactful so far. So in the chat, just let us know. And then I'm going to play this video. If you cannot hear it, let me know. We'll make sure it's good. But let us know if this has been helpful for you all so far. We appreciate y'all tuning in. And let's get into this. So the first one we have here is Jack calling the bot. Can he beat the bot? I don't know. I haven't listened to these calls yet, so I don't know if he beat this bot or not.
But I can't remember what I said to her. I hope I was polite. These bots were crazy.
I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen here. So we're about to play it. So y'all let me know if we can hear it.
Hello, who is this?
Samantha, I'll be very honest with you, as we've never spoken before. It is a sales call, and if that makes you want to hang up or let me have 30 seconds. Completely up to you.
Is this a cold call?
I'll be honest, Samantha, it is. I guess I can run through it in 30 seconds, and if it's not relevant, we can leave it there. Is that fair?
Fine, go ahead.
Brilliant. Well, Samantha, we're typically welcomed in by directors of marketing who, if they're honest, might be struggling with one of the following problems. So they could recognize it could be a volume issue when it comes to new business, so they aren't getting in front of enough people. It could be a quality issue, so they're not getting in front of the right types of people. Or maybe it's none of those, but they have a dream list of clients or a new sector they want to break into, but they just don't know how to do it. I have a feeling this is the part where you tell me none of that applies and everything's perfect.
Actually, we have been facing some issues with webinar engagement and the quality of our current platform, but I'm not sure how that fits with what you're talking about.
Okay. Webinar and your current platform. What do you mean? Sorry, can you give me an example?
The engagement rates have dropped, and we've received complaints about the audio and video quality. It's not as dynamic as we need it to be. Why are you asking?
Okay, I guess I'm just trying to get an understanding. I guess when you say complaints, could you give me an example? What does that look like?
Attendees have mentioned that the audio cuts out frequently and the video lags. It's frustrating because it affects the overall experience and engagement.
Okay. And when you spoke to the software company that provides this platform, what did they say about it?
They've been less than helpful, just standard troubleshooting that hasn't resolved the issues. It's been going in circles without any real solutions.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can necessarily help with that problem per se, but when it comes to like quantity, quality, or new sectors, what one stood out to you the most out of those three?
Quality is crucial for us. We're looking to drive more qualified leads through our marketing efforts, and breaking into new sectors is always on the agenda. But again, how does this
Okay.
relate to what you're offering?
Well, I guess at this point, Samantha, I'm just trying to get a good understanding whether we can help you. I don't know necessarily yet, but you said drive more qualified leads. Could you give me an example of what that looks like in your world?
Qualified leads for us are decision makers in the finance sector who are actively seeking technology solutions. We need to ensure that our marketing efforts are reaching the right audience and generating interest that our sales team can follow up on.
Okay. And how do you know that you're not doing that at the moment? I guess how do you know that's a problem?
We've noticed a drop.
All right, let's go back to live mode. I want to stop right here and talk about this call halfway in. So, audience, if you want to give some feedback on how this call is going, would love to hear your perspective. And Zach, would love to hear your perspective on how Jack is doing so far.
Can I break the fourth wall and ask a question about Hyperbound that's really been bothering me?
I mean, you could ask a question. You guys whatever you want.
All right. So that is a tool, an AI tool that's supposed to teach salespeople how to sell, right? But are we teaching it how to sell?
Fair play. What do you mean by that?
Is it a case of the more people that use it, you know, like there's this fear like one day something's going to take over SDR's job roles with an AI. Is that the front end of that? Like the more calls you do into that, the more it learns what works and what doesn't, and then it's going to start an outbound function.
Atul's in here. He's one of the co-founders, so he just answered that question in the chat from that perspective. Yeah. So he just went into it.
We don't train from customer usage. What does that mean? I'm just interested. I
think it's not like machine learning. It's like what they've got it all already. No matter how many calls go through, it will be the same.
I just had that moment yesterday where I was like, "Is this learning from me, or am I learning from it?"
Could be both. Who knows?
Yeah, Jack is doing very well. What we were talking about before in terms of accepting everything. Even I actually don't think many people that we deal with are quite as. They tend not to ask questions and go, "Why are you asking?" after every question. But Jack was doing it really well and giving like the justification of why he was asking and moving things on really nicely. And you even got her emotional about something that you don't sell. She was talking about a webinar platform. Like that just shows how good you are.
Are we going to listen to the end of the call? Because I'm going to give you a disclaimer. At the end, I book her in, but she thinks I'm a webinar platform. She's an AI. I didn't have the heart to tell her. I don't know what she thought I sold, but
I actually want to dive into two things that you did because I actually had a follow-up question on this one. So you did, I think Zach, you mentioned this as well. You did the bucket approach, but then you put a spin on it. Because I wrote this down and you were like, yeah, like, but if that doesn't apply here, like, I guess I'll just like move on. So what is the reason that you say it that way? Just so everyone understands that point. Because it's critical. This is a critical point that you just did here.
Was it the bit where I said you're probably going to tell me none of those problems exist and everything's perfect?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Because you know it's not. But I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm negatively framing it. So rather than me going and saying, Morgan, what one of those problems exists in your world? That's like me trying to grab your wallet, put my hands in your pockets, and you go, whoa, who said I had a problem?
Yeah.
But I'm saying you're telling me that you're not. I'm going big picture perfect. Well, actually, we know it's not, and they're going to say, well, no, I'm not. The 9 times out of 10 responses, I wouldn't say that. Go on. No, what are you saying? And it's like you're just getting a bit of intrigue, and then we're trying to get them in. Okay, pick a pot. Cool. Right now I'm in the pot. Now I can take them down that path and I can explore it. I can get real life examples. I can see how it's impacting them, why it's there, why it's a problem, how long it's existed for, and stuff like that. So it's a good way to get into a big open conversation without trying to grab somebody by the pockets.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that people caught that one because I think that's an excellent way that you did that as well, and so I hope that people can unpack that. And I think also as well, like another thing that I wrote down, and I use this quite a bit, and I want to make sure people catch this one too, is you use the word fair before you went into that phrasing that you just went into, and then also someone called it out, is you said, "Hey, is it okay if I ask you questions in the middle of the cold call?" Like, what are the 2 reasons that you do those things?
Fair is a great one. So the F word, the F bomb, people want to be seen in this world as fair. So when you're a child and somebody says you can't do something, that's so unfair. I'm going to stomp my feet. I'm going to kick off. So is that fair? People respond well to that and go, well, obviously I don't want to be seen as unfair. Okay. And what I'm asking for is reasonable. Can I say something to you for 30 seconds? And if it doesn't apply, we'll leave it there. But if it does, you get something out of it. Okay. That's a fair trade-off, isn't it? For I think if you lay it on the table, most people go, but it's not a ridiculous ask. Go on. And the second one is permission all the way through. It's just like letting people know where you are. You know, like an Uber, like before Uber existed, you'd probably for our friends in the States, you'd probably call a big yellow taxi and say, yeah, we'll be with you soon. And you sat and you're watching the clock and you're thinking, where is this taxi? What's happening? Whereas Uber lets you know we're 3 minutes away, we're 2 minutes away. Whereas it's just good for people and their kind of their mindset. Listen, I'll ask a couple more questions. Can I ask that? Getting that permission all the way through feels like you're not taking the mickey, as we might say in England.
What is taking the mickey? Some people may not know what that is.
Taking the Michael. No, that's the polite version.
That's all.
Yeah.
No, everyone in the States is confused. We have to translate.
Having a joke, having a laugh.
Okay. Gotcha.
Being cheeky.
Sorry. Being cheeky.
Being cheeky. Fair play. Okay. So those were like really key points. I think in that conversation is like the phrasing that you had there to make people feel comfortable and ease in. And Jonathan even said this, and I'll definitely highlight this one. I've been using fair. It probably opens up prospect. It's the best thing I picked up from following Jack. Oh, okay, Jack, you're getting some love here.
My
Best
man, Jonathan
Phillips.
You've paid that bloke.
Jonathan Phillips.
Yeah,
You've paid him.
My brother.
Some back end payment.
What's your back details?
That's your dad.
All right, y'all. So the next thing we're going to do is, because of time, we're not going to through the entire call. So Jack said he scheduled the meeting, so that's great. Let's hear what Zac does, like for the halfway point. We're going to get the same feedback for the remaining of our time. If you do have questions, throw them in the Q&A. I see a couple that we have in here, but now is the time to throw them in the Q&A because we're going to answer a couple towards the end. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull up Zac's call, so we're going to switch it up.
Hello, who is this?
Hello, is that Samantha?
Yes, this is Samantha. Is this a cold call?
Well, I'll be very honest. It is a cold call. I don't know if that makes you want to throw your phone out the window or let me have 30 seconds and decide. It's completely up to you.
All right, you've got 30 seconds. Make it quick.
Okay, well, I'll make it quick, and if you're not interested, I won't bother you again. So typically, I get invited in by ambitious companies who are often frustrated because there's either not enough meetings in the diary and the pipeline's looking a little bit bleak, or they're not meeting the right types of people and they're trapped in never-ending deal cycles that seem to not go anywhere. But this might be the point where you tell me new business is perfect and you couldn't possibly take on another new client even if you wanted to.
Look, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but we're doing all right in terms of new business. What exactly are you offering?
Okay, do you mind if I ask you one last question then before I let you go?
Fine, one question. What is it?
You said you're doing all right in terms of new business. What did that mean?
It means we're meeting our targets and the pipeline is healthy. Why do you ask?
Okay. So would you say everything's perfect?
Nothing's ever perfect, but we're managing. What's your point?
Okay. Well, one last question then.
All right, but make it quick. What's the question?
Okay, if you could fix one thing about your current pipeline, what would it be?
If I had to pick something, I'd say improving the quality of leads. Now, can we wrap this up?
Of course we can. Well, when you say quality of leads, what do you mean exactly?
I mean, leads that are more likely to convert. We've been getting a lot of unqualified leads lately. Anything else?
Okay, a lot of unqualified leads lately, so it's quite a new thing?
It's been an issue for a bit. We're always looking to improve lead qualification. Now, is there a reason you're asking all these questions?
Yeah, so I'd be quite frustrated with all the questions as well. Okay, so it sounds like you're not opposed to new ideas.
I'm open to new ideas if they make sense for us, but I'm not interested in a long, drawn-out sales pitch. What are you proposing?
Okay, well, look, I won't make you any promises, but if I said I get brought in to help companies that are looking to improve the quality and sit down with people who are more likely to convert, what would you tell me?
I'd tell you that I need to see some real value and clear benefits before considering anything. Can you provide that?
Sure. Can I ask you a really direct question then, if that's the case?
Yes, go ahead with your question.
Have you given up on looking at new ways?
No, I haven't given up on looking at new ways. We're actively seeking
Okay.
solutions that can improve our processes. What are you suggesting?
Okay, well, I've got a few ideas. I appreciate I've cold called you, and you didn't want a long, drawn-out call. But if I said I've helped companies with this and we'd need to put some time aside in the next few weeks, how against that would you be?
If you've helped other companies, then I'm willing to listen. But I need to know more about what you're offering and how it aligns with our needs. Can you send me some information by email? Then we can decide if it's worth setting up a meeting. What's your email?
Sure. Okay. What's the best email to catch you on, Samantha?
You can reach me at samantha.diaz@mutiny.com. I'll look out for your email. Goodbye.
Yo, Samantha did not like you.
I wasn't
Like,
expecting.
oh my goodness.
I wasn't expecting to just hang up on me as well. Yeah. Like, she wanted to. Bizarre. But yeah, she didn't like me, which is the same for most women.
She was not having it at all.
We grew up in the 90s. We're not used to all this AI malarkey.
No, exactly.
Oh my goodness. All right, y'all. So feedback in the chat on what you liked and what could be improved. I actually across the board want to hear from, I just saw it earlier. Who said it? I think it was Harry. That he didn't like an intro. I'd like to understand why you did not like a certain intro. Yeah, Harry, you said you did not a fan of it. Would just love to hear it. No, not to come after you. I'm just curious. And then Moss is asking about the bot, Hyperbound bot. It's actually in the pinned comments. You can check that out there. But Jack, let's hear your feedback on Zach. And then as Jack is giving his feedback, everybody listening in, if you want to provide your questions, put them in the Q&A.
I don't have any time for the guy, but I think he did a really good job. Respectfully. Yeah, I think like the one last question. I think it's testament of like my mindset is a big thing as well, because I know like so many new SDRs would have been like, Samantha is not having see you later, and I know Zach knew it was a bot, but he stayed in there. One last question, keeping the conversation flowing, and I love the direct question. Can I ask a direct question? It's just so when we ask that question to a human being, obviously Samantha doesn't have feelings. I'm allowed to say that in 2024. But when we say, Morgan, I need to ask you a really direct question, as a normal human being, your fight or flight response is probably going to start wavering. You're thinking, is that a saber-toothed tiger? in the bush, or actually is it a little cheeky British cold caller? And the blood is going to start rushing from your toes to your head, and you're thinking, what is he going to ask me here? I say, have you given up? It's not that bad. I'm not saying where do you live or like what do you like to do in the evening. Like it's not that direct. It's like a genuine question about that, and then you're like, oh right, well that's not too bad, and then you kind of open it up. Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it was good. The one last look in there, Harry Robbins. I get the one last question, but when you say that a few times, that frustrates people. I think you'd be surprised. Like you'd be really surprised the amount of one last questions. People aren't sat there with it. We forget that people are in their day, they're busy, they're doing things, they're having a conversation. I do agree if you say it 9 times, 10 times, there's going to be a certain note that pricks up. But like using it a few times, people aren't going, you've said that 3 times. Right, that's it. That's your final question.
Yeah, you watch we do like a live cold call show. We do a live cold call show. The amount of times we go, look, I know I've asked my one last question. Can I be really cheeky and push my luck? People start laughing. Yeah, of course you can. So Harry Robbins, who doesn't like one last questions or the opener from TikTok, let us know what you like that's different. Maybe you should be sat in our shoes.
I've never used the one last question before. It's actually my first time hearing it. And it's something I'm actually going to go try out because I like it a lot, because it's very similar to this question. It actually correlates with your question, Jonathan, because post-COVID, the reason I actually changed to more permission-based openers is because of the whole people's psychological psyche mindset changed. You know, you could used to be able to be a little bit more directive in your intros. I think now with permission-based openers post-COVID, I actually have seen more engagement from that, from my own self, clients, you know, et cetera, things of that nature. I don't make hundreds of cold calls every single day like I used to, but when I do make one, I always find the permission-based opener leads to more engagement, which the one question I believe leads to more engagement because you're respecting the conversation and you're also setting the expectations. You're doing these mini upfront contracts in the conversation, which is why I like it. Like you're planting those seeds along the way. So now people are like, wait, what's going on here? This is interesting, right? It changes the conversation, which again, I think that I really like there. Something that I saw across the board and also used it typically as well. I think that was spot on too.
And it's an interesting communication style, isn't it? It's like let's think about it. Like 99% of, I know that we're talking, so it'd be easy to get into an echo chamber, and LinkedIn's brilliant for that. Of like, oh, everyone's using that, everyone's using that, and everyone's using one last question. Like, let's face it, 99% of salespeople probably aren't even on LinkedIn, posting on LinkedIn, or even engaging, and they're doing the same thing. I received a cold call from an American recruiter earlier. And he said, hi, is that Jack? Yeah. Jack, we're an award-winning recruitment company, but and it's just the same old dribble. So spice it up. Can I ask one last question? You're like, this is a different communication. It's like learning to dance. It's like not just 1-2 step. It's like, whoa, this guy can bend.
Wow. This guy's got hips that don't lie, eh?
No, I like that. I think that's good feedback. And so we have 8 minutes left. Again, if y'all found this to be helpful, so let us know in the chat. And provide us feedback there. What I'm going to do is we're going to get to this last question here, which is if the meeting is booked and accepted, the prospect doesn't attend, they go dark. Any advice on a different opener than just in checking in and circling back? Yeah, definitely don't say that. I'll tell you that. That's don't say that. That's the first piece of advice.
Do not circling back.
I think this is one like the mentality you should have around objections is a case of holding up the mirror. All things in the objection world are your fault. There's no such thing as bad prospects. There's only bad salespeople. So if you've booked a meeting and they didn't attend, it's because they felt like they could not attend. So when we wrap up a cold call, just before we book a meeting, we ask a few very strange questions before we let someone go. Just before I go ahead and let you crack on with your day, do you mind if I ask you 3 very strange questions before I let you go? And they'll say, yes, go on. And I say, if we sit down next week and you think there's no way I'd want to work with this guy, he doesn't sound like he knows what he's talking about, are you comfortable telling me no? I'll say, yeah, of course, I wouldn't want to waste your time. Okay. Equally, if you think there's something in this and you think maybe we could work together, are you happy to outline some next steps on that call? yes, I'm happy to do that as well. So then I've closed the call. You can give me a yes or a no on that next conversation. Now, the last one that I say is, and the last one, the strangest one of all, is there any reason other than an act of God that I'll be sat crying into my coffee because you haven't attended? People will verbalize and say, no, I wouldn't waste your time. I wouldn't be there. There's no, I'll make sure I'm there. Now, there's always the people's cats get run over on the way to work and emergencies happen and things. But I've found by doing that as my last question, if people aren't going to attend, they tend to text me, email me, reschedule, let me know. That has become a bit of a holy grail, and I never book a meeting without asking that question.
I love that. That's also really good for if you're the SDR handing off to the AE. I always tell people you're going to get the best answers to whatever you're trying to uncover at the end of the call because they've already agreed to the meeting. So there's not a lot of friction there at that point. It's going to be pretty straightforward, and you're going to have way better conversations across the board, right? So, Eric, thank you. Glad you enjoyed that piece. All right, y'all. So we have 5 minutes left. Let's answer this one quick. Working in tech sales, I speak to a lot of IT directors or CTOs. Do case studies of what you've done with similar industries work? So I have a bit on this, but Jack, if you want to take it.
You're probably case studies are a funny thing, I think, but contextually, the people that you're speaking to, do they have in what sense does a case study work? Like, does it help? Does it sell for you? Like, what are we using a case study for? Like, it's so much context there, but if they don't have a problem that you solve, a case study won't do it. If they do have it, then it might get, like, obviously there's that emotional path that we're trying to take them to, but if we can add in some the decision that is logical and there's some like clarity and that you've got that kind of what's the word? There's another word. The pathos. What is it? Logic, emotion, and
I can't help you. Sorry. I don't know the answer. Someone in the chat? No, I don't know.
What's his triangle called? You do it. Credibility.
There we go.
So a case study, yeah, you get them on the emotional, you get them on the logical, you get them on the credibility line of things. So yeah, like you kind of want to tick all the boxes. Will it work miracles for you? No. Might it help if they don't have a problem? No. What's your bit, Morgan?
So as long as you mention companies within that industry as a brief thing, you're fine. The only time you want to pull out a real use case and you want to do a monologue on it is if they're pressuring you in the middle of the conversation. I wouldn't lead with it because I find that if you lead with those numbers, people are like, oh, is that really true or not? But if they're like pressuring you and say, like, in the middle of the call, that one of the objections you might get is, okay, who else have you worked with the industry? What results have you seen? Okay, be prepared to actually talk about that. I always tell people be prepared for that. But in the beginning of the conversation, yeah, just mention a couple companies within that realm. Hey, yeah, we work with these companies in your industry. Boom, boom, boom. Briefly. Don't even like go into it unless they ask. That's what I do. But what I would tell you to avoid is but also you got to be careful here with the industries because let's say for SaaS, right? You're going after SaaS and you're talking to a startup. Don't say, hey, we've done work with Salesforce and Google to a startup. That isn't going to help you because like as much as they might aspire to be that, they're not at that stage. So you won't be able to actually directly help them in what you have told them. And it's actually just going to go one ear and out the other. It's great that you have Google and Salesforce, but it's not going to help the startup because that's not their mindset right now. So I tell people to be very mindful of the companies you mention when you speak on industries.
Yeah, what you might see internally as a selling point could actually be a disqualifying point. To be very, very careful. Good advice, Morgan. You should do this for a living. You're really good.
All right, I'm decent, you know. Okay, this last one from Cal. We're gonna answer this real quick and then we'll get out of here. So, if I know you don't like people saying the biggest in the UK. My boss wants to include in our pitch that we are a specialist ad agency. Does that fall under the same thing?
Not really, but it's irrelevant.
What does it mean?
Yeah. It's totally irrelevant. It's about the problem you solve,
right?
That an ad agency solves. Let's say it's lead gen. What is the problem that exists because you need lead gen via an ad agency? It's that you're banging your head against the wall. The business isn't growing as it should. not enough deals coming through, not enough web traffic, whatever it may be. There is a problem that it solves. If someone was sat in the pub complaining about it to their friends, they would never go, oh, I just need a specialist ad agency. They would talk about the problem they want solved instead. So you can put it in there. I don't think it's relevant.
So Callum Thomas has said, it means we focus on one channel, LinkedIn, and we're the only one in the UK that is solely LinkedIn. Straight in, Manchester, gotta be. No, maybe not. But yeah, like say that. We're a LinkedIn special, like, do you know what I mean? We do LinkedIn, we're a LinkedIn agency. Yeah, maybe.
Talking yourself out of it as you say it.
Incredible.
All right, y'all. Zach, where can they find y'all as we wrap up here?
We're on LinkedIn. Just search for a couple of schmucks, Zac Thompson, Jack Frimston. We have a meeting if you want help with sales trading. We've got a sales community, a sales consultancy, and we book meetings in your diary if you need meetings. But after this workshop, you're all going to be booking loads of meetings, so you won't need us.
Awesome, y'all. Well, again, we do these monthly, so we'll see you all on the next one. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your day, and cheers.